Hello, and welcome to the podcast. I am Angelie.
And I'm Sarah. Together with our team, we are Mountain Point Academy.
We are so excited to share insights into education with you and hope that you can find value in these conversations geared toward fostering lifelong learners. Let's talk. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode. Today we wanted to talk about kind of a hot topic right now in the education, well really, and in most industries right now, the use of AI, particularly ChatGPT, and what that looks like, how that's affecting different industries, education, healthcare, business, like it's affecting all the things. And obviously we will be addressing specifically how that's affecting education, maybe some of the pros and cons associated with that, what that looks like for students, what that looks like for educators, and kind of how we can embrace this new wave of technology and learning. So, Sarah, what are your initial thoughts or findings as this has kind of been a hot topic?
Gosh, so my initial thoughts were fear when I heard about it and thought, oh, great. Like this is just one more thing that students are going to try to take advantage of. And just kind of, when technology starts doing things that surprise us, it can be a little scary because it's like, I know, people are programming it to do certain things, but it's almost a little scary, a little bit creepy when it's like, I can just ask any question and it gives me this response in real time. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's just a little different to wrap your mind around. So my first initial reaction was a little bit of fear toward it. And then just started researching it more and looking into it. And I created a ChatGPT account and just started playing around with it. And it's growing on me. It's cool. Like you when you start learning how to use it, it's actually, I don't know, it's fascinating. The stuff that it comes up with. It's like, all right, it's scouring the web, right? And taking all these sources into account. So it's different than just doing a simple Google search because it's conversational, which is a little trippy, but it's kind of neat.
Yeah. So it kind of takes, I guess, the extra research steps out of it because, instead of, like you said, oh, hey, I'm going to Google this answer and then I'm going to pull up 5 different websites that might have additional information on it. ChatGPT kind of does that all at once for you and dumps it into hey, this is what I found about the topic, right? So it's
right. It'll give you like the top 10 things or whatever, if you ask it for some ideas. So, you're not having to look through pages of Google and some of the search results aren't always relevant or Google doesn't understand what you were trying to ask it. And so it's just giving you things that it's like, okay, this is not what I was looking for. So yeah.
Work smarter, not harder, right? It's kind of what it feels like a little bit with this ChatGPT option. And, and as with anything, I think in life, there's always pros and cons to different areas. Like, the first thing I thought of when I heard ChatGPT was like, oh, great. Now, we can just copy and paste off the internet and that's our thing. And plagiarism is no more because it doesn't matter, right? Oh, I put it in ChatGPT and it wrote my 600 word essay for me. So not a big deal. Now I'm done. Submit it, right? And no thought or creativity really goes into that, right? And I actually had an interesting conversation with a college student who had turned in their paper for one of their classes, like a final paper, and she got a notification from her professor saying, hey, we need to talk about your paper. So she's thinking, oh, great, like what has happened? And so she got called in to her professor's office saying, hey, this was flagged for plagiarism. Did you use ChatGPT? And she said, I used it to write an outline, but then everything else was mine. And so she had to basically convince the teacher that she actually wrote it and explain her thought process and how she formulated the paper and kind of defend herself to her professor, right? But that's how crazy and advanced this AI is getting, that even if an outline of your paper is written by ChatGPT, it's flagged. Right? It's going to show up in a plagiarism search, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. So, and there are different types of checkers. So students might be thinking, okay, I didn't actually plagiarize this from the internet. It's just like from a specific source. It was ChatGPT writing it, and ChatGPT will give you different responses at different times, or you can ask it the same question, ask for another response, and it gives you an entirely different response if the first one wasn't what you were looking for. But there is something that we utilize at Mountain Point Academy, and it's GPT-0. There's other checkers. And so even if a plagiarism checker doesn't detect plagiarism from a different source on the internet, it will tell you whether or not it believes the writing to be written by AI or by human. So it'll give you a percentage, like this is most likely entirely written by AI, or this is most likely entirely written by a human. So it can pick up on that. So if you're using it for some and maybe changing a few things, there's a chance that it's going to get picked up by a checker of some sort, either an AI bot checker or a plagiarism checker. So it is something to be aware of. I think it's a great tool to use when you are trying to come up with ideas. If you're having that writer's block and you're feeling stuck, could give you some different ideas to think about, an outline. It can help you with that. So I think it's a great tool to use as long as it's being used ethically, because there are limitations to it. I mean, pretty much the sentence structure is all the same, which is why those AI bot checkers like GPT-0 will pick up on the fact whether this is 100% written by AI, because there's just not a whole lot of variation. That's one thing AI struggles with, is creativity and things like that. It's like there are certain things that humans do really well, and AI can't, at least yet, do a lot of those things, right? Yeah. So just thinking outside of the box, understanding like abstract concepts and stuff like that, or just creativity in general. Great for sparking ideas, but not always the most creative.
That's kind of one of the biggest arguments that I've heard against the use of AI or ChatGPT is that it's going to take away creativity. It's going to take away critical thinking and, some of those human skills that are essential for us to function in society, because it'll just be easier to, I'll ChatGPT it. It's fine. And you don't really have to sit on it and ponder or think of a creative way of how to present an idea, because, I'll just ask ChatGPT, switch a couple things up, make it seem like I wrote it, right? Whereas that's a whole different process of just coming up with something from scratch, writing it yourself, and presenting those ideas, right? And I think, like you said, it ties back into those ethical considerations. Like, how ethical is it? Was that a original thought? Was that what you were actually thinking, right? So I think that's kind of been the biggest argument that I've heard as to why maybe that's a big con of AI. But on the other flip side, one of the biggest things that I've heard, especially for AI supporting education, is how it's going to kick out personalized learning for students, which that's something we've kind of already seen in the digital space, particularly like we've used the math program ALEKS, which you take an assessment, AI kicks out a report saying, all right, based on what you've shown of your understanding, here's where you need to be. And these are the things you still need to master in order to pass geometry or algebra 2 or whatever it may be. And so in that sense, that's a great tool for personalized learning. And a lot of these newer AI programs are coming out with that as well. ChatGPT is just one example of, right. Yeah, I have writer's block. I have to write this essay. How do I set up a formal outline? Maybe a student doesn't understand the whole intro paragraph, 3 supporting paragraphs, and a thesis. So if they kick that topic into ChatGPT, it can give them some ideas of, all right, if this is your topic, here's some things, here's an outline. And so there's benefits, pros and cons, right? Like there always is. But those are some of the biggest things I've heard as this discussion kind of circulating. Is there any other things you've heard, Sarah?
Well, I just think that as a school, if you're trying to keep it hush hush, or like, oh, we can't use this tool, right? Students aren't allowed to use it and ban the use of it. I think you're taking the wrong approach, because and technology can always be used in a positive way to help make our lives easier. We're in the age of information now. So things have shifted with school. Like before it was so important to be able to regurgitate facts and just rote learning and memorization of things. Well, times have changed. So instead of that being the primary concern in schools, we need to educate our students to be creative, right? We need to shift in the way that we're approaching it so that we're creating critical thinkers, creative thinkers. Let's focus on the things that AI can't do and build up those skills, because now that we have this at our fingertips, it just seems, less and less important to be able to reference certain things from memory or, just have specific facts on hand. We just need to use our brains in a different way. So I think that, like anything, there are pros and cons, and we need to teach our students how to use it ethically and how to use it to their advantage, not just to create a shortcut to something. Because AI, yes, you can throw something into AI, into ChatGPT, and have it spit out an essay for you. It's not going to be very exciting to read, though. And those creative writers are going to be rising above the rest if everybody does decide, I'm going to take the shortcut and just use ChatGPT. Sorry, but you're just not going to stand out from the rest. People aren't going to want to read your stuff. Those creative thinkers are going to be the ones that are going to be successful in society. So let's focus on that in schools now, creating those creative thinkers, critical thinkers. And yeah, I think it's going to require a huge shift, though, in the way we approach it, because you can't prevent students from using tools that are available. Just like Brainly and some of those other, sites that kids can go to create flashcards and get answers to questions. If you're just going to completely ban stuff like that without giving students a good guideline on how to effectively use it, it's just going to be one of those sneaky things that they can get away with maybe. And, it's like, instead of just embracing it and saying, how can we use this in a good way? I think ChatGPT is very similar to that, because technology is not slowing down.
No,
we're not going backwards from here. It's just going to keep getting, more and more. And if we don't just shift the way we think about it.
Yeah. Well, and if we as adults and particularly educators don't understand what these tools are or how they work, then we're coming up against, how do we keep up with this? How do we understand what's happening, or the different tools and resources that are available to our students? How can we use it to an advantage where it's beneficial and not, like you said, this sneaky hush hush, because then what is that teaching students? Oh, hey, I can be sneaky. I can be a con artist, right? Like, I'm getting away with something. Like, are those the skills we want to be instilling? Or is it more about, like you said, hey, these are the ethical considerations. Make sure you're taking into account your own creativity, your own critical thinking. This is just a starting point to help generate ideas. And then you can either agree or disagree, right? Like, especially if it's like a, opinion-based essay, like,
or about yourself.
Like you can have this tool to kind of give you those ideas and help springboard it. So
one thing that AI also doesn't do is just making sense of things that require a lot of experience or intuition. So there are many limitations to AI and ChatGPT, and oftentimes if you ask something very recent, it doesn't always know the answer. I think it even has a disclaimer that anything before 2021, like, it might not have a good answer for you. And if it doesn't know or can't find the answer, sometimes it'll just give you its best guess answer. So you can, that's like the disclaimer right when you sign up for the program, is you can't just rely on this to be the ultimate source of truth. So you're running that risk if you're just using ChatGPT to write your full essay. Where are your sources coming from? How are you going to cite that? These are things that you have to think about. So I think my general consensus on it is that it's a cool tool. I think we should all learn how to use it more, learn the ins and outs. Definitely educators should, parents should know what it's about, because all of our kids are going to be using this. So
Yeah.
why not learn as much as you can about it and find out how it can make your life easier too? Like a cool thing that one of our teachers could use it for, like our math teachers, is putting in, asking it for sample problems to work together. And it'll just give you a bunch of sample problems on a specific topic. Right? You don't have to scour the web for worksheets or create your own worksheets. That's something that it can just be used to make your life simpler. So using it in the right way, I think, is key.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's like any piece of technology, and you brought up a good point about like parents learn it as well. And I think that's an opportunity for you as parents to discuss with your student, hey, there's this Chat GPT. How have you seen it to be effective? What are its limitations? What should you use it for? What shouldn't you use it for, right? It's all about, in a sense, educating your student as well and having those conversations and recognizing that, yeah, we're keeping up with the times. I mean, especially us as an online school, part of our journey is to innovate and keep up with the times and find out which tools are handy and how it can help students. And so parents, same for you. Like Sarah said, it could come in handy for your job or business or whatever you're involved with, right? To kind of cut those corners of the hours and hours maybe spent researching, just say, hey, here's the topic I'm interested in. Give me some statistics. Throw out some statistics with some articles. So then you kind of have that comparison at hand, which I think for me especially would be great, because I hate when I'm toggling through, 5 different open tabs and trying to remember, well, where was that statistic at? Where did I see it? And if this is all just dumped in one place, then boom, it's right there.
Recently, I tried using it so I'm in a band as a kind of a side gig. Some of you who maybe have listened before might know that, or you might not. But so I was interested to see what would happen if I asked it to write a song for me, and gave it the topic, wrote the lyrics. The song was not great. But I was like, hey, there's some really strong ideas here or concepts that could be used to, like, if you're in the middle of trying to write lyrics for a song, hey, like, it kind of gets your mind going. But if I just took the song as it was fully written by ChatGPT, it would not be a hit song. So that shows you the limitations of like, hey, you know what? It broke it down into verse 1, verse 2, chorus, bridge and all of that. It had it all broken down, but not super strong writing at all. So I don't know. I think it's definitely, as long as you know what the limitations are, and you're using it in the right way and it's sparking creativity in somebody and giving you those ideas to help you move on to the next step, great. I think we just need to be educated on what the limitations are. That's all.
Yes. Well, and not taking everything from AI as gospel fact, right?
Right.
I saw a creepy video where essentially AI cloned like Joe Rogan's voice and created a fake episode of his podcast. And I was like, is that true? Is that real? Like, that's where the AI kind of gets into this like shady, like, ooh, did you actually say that? Is that actually where this is? And so fact checking, right? Like, I think as the default in society, I read it on Google, it must be true. I saw it on YouTube, it must be true, right? Like, it's kind of the fact checking process.
The art of common sense too is dwindled. So it's, making sure that that's something that we're placing emphasis on with our young people is learning to think using common sense, think critically, and ask those questions like, does this make sense? Am I missing facts here? Am I seeing the full picture?
What is my intuition telling me? Those are some things that it's like, we can't lose those basic skills, because it is so easy to just believe what's out there if you're not following it up, fact finding, doing your kind of due diligence, if you will, to make sure the information's accurate. So it's definitely an interesting world, and definitely an interesting space for education, because like you said, it opens up a door of total possibilities, but then also gets into that ethical considerations where it's like, all right, where's the line? How as educators can we navigate this so that we're still encouraging, the effective use of technology, but not discrediting ethics and morals and all those things.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I agree. So
yeah, to really
bottom line is
learning is happening, right? Because that's the other concern is, did you actually learn something, or did ChatGPT just tell you that? That's, I think, a huge question for educators. How are we gauging that that's really their understanding? If our teachers aren't following it up and saying, you presented an interesting topic in your paper, tell me a little more about that. And then if the students kind of deer in the headlights look, not knowing what to say, chances are, hey, you can use ChatGPT. That's great. But what did you learn? How are you going to take this away as a real world applicable skill to your education? Right. And I think that's kind of the responsibility that educators will have moving forward is, again, fact finding, right? We're not just taking it for gospel truth that that's what they know or that's what they believe, because it could be something that they just haven't really thought of, but just, hey, I changed a couple things and I think this is great and whatever. Let's roll with it. Paper's done. Moving on.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is going to change the approach. I think we have to roll with it and change with the times as educators, and just it's something that we need to be aware of, and coming up with different live activities, I think, is going to be huge. So with us, we're a virtual school, so we're limited on the amount of live one-on-one time students have with teachers, but our teachers can be asking those questions with the student as follow-up, like, what'd you get out of it? What did you think about it? In that live setting where they don't have the opportunity to consult with ChatGPT on it, right? It's just like, tell me about what you think about it. And for those schools that are brick and mortar, in classroom is having some writing assignments that are done right there in class in a live setting, not something they take home and do at home, but let's do something right here in class now. Or again, writing about yourself. That's something ChatGPT can't tell you. Can't write an essay about you because it doesn't know you. So we just have to be creative about the types of things that we're assigning to students and figuring out what our end goal is. So if it's a research paper, great, ChatGPT can get you a super good start on that, and you'll probably learn a lot, and it'll give you some good things to learn to research more into. But if we're trying to build writing skills specifically, maybe we need to use some of those tactics and techniques so that students aren't tempted to use AI to get the job done. So just depends on what your end goal is as an educator. What is the learning outcome that we're trying to achieve, and adjust the assignment accordingly.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, any educators listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts, how you're handling this new on the scene AI, ChatGPT, like all the tools. Like, let us know what you've found to be effective, what conversations you've had with your students that you found to be particularly effective. Parents, you too, we'd love to hear from you about your thoughts, the conversations that are being had, what students are viewing it as. There's all sorts of different avenues to this. So comment, let us know. And, we can maybe even bring up further episodes of, hey, this is what we found out, and this is what parents are thinking. This is what students are thinking. We'd love to hear your opinions because you're in the thick of it too, just dealing with it on a daily basis. So let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And we'll see you next time on our podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed today's episode and you learned a bit more about the power of education. If you liked this episode, be sure to share it with your friends. Our goal is to get the rising generation excited about lifelong learning so they can continue to improve their quality of life, not only through formal education, but through the love of learning by exploring their talents, passions, and dreams. And if you have a student or you are a student, be sure to continue to listen for exciting Career Day episodes to help you figure out what you want to be when you grow up. And if you are on the fence about online learning or aren't sure if it's the right fit for you or your student, we are doing free consultation calls at mountainpointacademy.com/let's chat. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.